Look at the adjective. Play.
And I have half the brain that you do. I told you.
Now is the franchise going to take the Viagra?
Gonna put the butts in the seat.
Hello there, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 103 of Because WCW, the podcast where the big boys play. My name is the Twisted Genius, Dean A.S., and I'm joined as ever by my esteemed and long-suffering colleague, the DAZN journalist, Liam Happ. Liam, you've had a busy old week. How are you holding up?
I'm how I always am when we finally sit down to this podcast in modern times, Dean. I am absolutely shattered. How are we still doing this? I'm not even sure if we're at the golden age of podcasting is over. I'm not even sure we're at a silver age anymore. We may be down to like tin.
We're down to the dregs, just like our petrol caps. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. It's the tin era of podcasting, and I feel like the tin man in desperate need of oil.
Yeah, if you're listening to this from anywhere in the world apart from the UK, all you need to know is that basically we've run out of petrol. And no one can get petrol. That's all we're talking about, unless you ride a bike, in which case you look even more smug than usual. Right, we have got ourselves a special guest on again today, and we're doing a pay-per-view review for the first time in a little while.
Yeah.
So I'm quite excited about this one. I have sat down, I've watched it, I've done my notes. We're traveling back to we'll cover what pay-per-view we're talking in a moment, but I would like to welcome onto the show for the first time a new guest, podcaster Richard Benson, better known to you and I as Benno. Good evening, Benno. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, mate. I'm glad you could mind the dregs of podcasting and you ended up with me. I think that's it. It's only fair. It's the welcome to the bottom of the barrel of Bret Res, but no, I'm made up to be here, lads. It's a big fan of what you guys do, and yeah, made up to meet you a few weeks ago and get the invite to do this.
It was good. Yeah, we met you we finally met in the flesh at the Hooked on Wrestling AEW full gear all out party. A few weeks ago. Good fun that was. Anthony Agogo turned up. Wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
So we have listeners from all over the world, including, of course, a small percentage from parts unknown. For those people who may not be familiar with you, tell us what you do, where we can hear you, apart from this show, obviously, and where to find you on the socials.
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah, for my sins, cover British wrestling still. There is still a scene to cover. We could do it over at postwrestling.com, the British Wrestling Experience, where we monthly round up the news in Brit Res and reviews and such as shows are coming back. My main podcast is the Grappl podcast, Grappl Spotlight. Grappl is the rating app out there where you can throw your star ratings in and play Dave Meltzer, and we are the official podcast of that, and we kind of do it's more of a look at the world of wrestling, AEW, some WWE when we can be bothered, bit of New Japan also when we can be bothered, considering the state of that G1 this year. But yeah, we cover all kinds over there. We've got a Patreon over there as well at patreon.com/Grappl. But other than that, I'm just that dickhead on Twitter at Benson Richard E. So you can find me over there too.
You are a good man to follow on Twitter. Over the last 18 months or so, this man does not hold back on his forthright opinions, and I'm all for that on Twitter. Beautiful stuff. So you have chosen for this pay-per-view review Mayhem 99, and I do have to ask you, for God's sake, why?
Did I choose it? I didn't know I did.
Yeah, sorry guys, this may have been a little bit of me. So
was this you?
I'll explain
Liam,
this.
You complete bastard.
I'll explain this. There is a reason. Obviously,
First of all, can I just apologise to Benno and clear his good name?
Appreciate
I thought
that.
he selected this.
See, I just thought it was punishment for me losing the quiz to you guys at the AEW party.
Yeah, I
I'm
suppose
still
we
bitter
should
about that.
apologise for that. I mean, we should apologise to everyone who attended the all-out Hooked on London party and participated in the traditional quiz, because it was kind of loaded. You had a team that comprised of myself, Dean, celebrity mastermind winner and former guest Adam Pearson, and British wrestling legend and former guest Doug Williams. So
Yes.
it wasn't fair on anyone. But one good thing that did. Go on, mate.
I was gonna say I looked over at that table and I just thought, oh, I've got no chance. I've got to throw it out there. I was on my own. I was looking around at the room thinking, there's some casual AEW fans here. I think I'm gonna do all right. And I looked at your table and, like you say, I saw Dean, I saw Doug Williams, and thought, yeah, no chance here. So I'm just proud I came second. I'll take it.
Yeah, it reminds me of, it was like those scenes, where there's a Survivor Series match and it boils down to like 3 or 4 on 1, and the guy across the ring just looks at it and he's like, oh fuck, how do I do this?
Yeah,
they somehow get in like a sneaky pinfall, whittle it down by 1, and then they just get overwhelmed by the numbers. So I felt bad about that. But obviously, this was the place where we got to meet you in person, and it was also the place where we watched a hell of a show. AEW getting all the headlines at the minute for giving some real competition, and there was a funny stat about that pay-per-view because All Out 2021 ended up doing the best number, I believe I read, the best number performance of any non-WWE pay-per-view since Mayhem 1999 WCW. So we decided, even though we usually give our guests the free reign to pick something, and we'll call this an IOU, Benno, because if we have you on a second time, we won't stand in your way. Just pick whatever you want from our remaining list. We won't try and compromise you this time. But this time, we've got this little link, and I thought it was a great thing to do because we're all big AEW fans, and we enjoyed the show. And there's just this lovely little segue. It makes a world of sense. And then I turned it on and I remembered, oh crap, it's a Vince Russo pay-per-view. So, my bad, guys. My bad.
Yeah.
See, I'd like to say I would have picked a Russo pay-per-view anyway, but I'm not on this evidence.
Masochist.
Listen up, slapnuts. That's right. This is Jeff Jarrett, the chosen one, and you're listening to Because WCW. Now choke on that.
This was this is in November, so this would have replaced the old World War III 3-ring battle royal format that they've had for the last few years. Yeah, so just to give you the background and the beginning of the show, it's November the 21st, 1999, and we are coming at you from the Air Canada Centre in Toronto, Canada. And the highlight of the show is the culmination of a 32-man tournament to crown a new WCW World Heavyweight Champion. We see a video package at the beginning. Sting was stripped of the title after he laid out the referee, Charles Robinson, with a Scorpion Death Drop at the end of Halloween Havoc 99. The whole tournament so far is recapped. It's littered with interference. Medusa goes through to the next round despite losing in the first round. Now, I don't get this. Is this just me, or does it not make sense that Sting, who was stripped of the title, is allowed to enter the tournament to regain the title he was stripped of? Is it just me?
That's the only thing that doesn't make sense, is it, Dean? Is it? That's the only thing in that entire recap. Because straight away as this show started, and poor old Tony Schiavone's trying to run through everything that's happened in this tournament, and it's one of the most long and confusing intros to a wrestling show I've ever seen. And as you said, they've entered in a female wrestler for the lulz. She got beat. She got put back in anyway. They decided to make random matches of the tournament, cage matches and no DQ matches and all this. I think the US title changed hands several times in the tournament. They're just and just hearing him recap it, it was just like a long suffering situation. But yeah, it does make no sense to have him entered in it when you've stripped him. But the thing here, and the most important thing that struck, I don't know if you guys thought this, but Russo's not long started here. There's this whole thing where there's people still buying that he was the reason that WWE was cool again and was doing well again, and it became evident that the element of what he brought to the table that he was bringing from WWE to WWE was the Deadly Game tournament. Because
Yeah, right, yes.
as he would proceed to do, his thing would be to vacate a bunch of titles and crown a tournament to crown new champion, and then vacate them and crown new tournament to crown new champion, and then vacate them to crown new tournament to crown. And for some reason, it didn't really come across as the shocking, swerve, exciting content he thought he was producing. Somehow.
Yep. That's Vince Russo. He had
Yep.
a couple of good ideas, and he just went back to the well and back to the well. Like, I was trying to like place myself like where I was like in life, kind of like watching WCW at this point, and whether I bought that. And I think I did. I definitely, being a Power Slam reader at the time, like obviously knew the Vince. It wasn't all great with Vince Russo, but definitely believed the idea that he was the brains behind the WWF at that point. But I mean, you can look back at it 2021 eyes now and kind of go, well, did WWF get better when he left? Yes. Did WCW get worse? Well, based on this pay-per-view, also yes. And yeah, it was just a matter of him just slotting wrestlers into ideas he'd had previously. Oh, Booker T, yeah, you can be The Rock. We can just do Deadly Game. It was just typical Russo.
Yeah, well, I will say one pleasantly surprising move, unless there's something I've missed here in the intro package, was that Chris Benoit appears to have beaten Scott Hall reasonably cleanly to get into the semi-finals.
Yeah, that was very much his thing. He was always a big proprietor of elevating the status and the TV time of guys who were under that famous glass ceiling that was the big problem in WCW before him. So obviously he provided a welcome tonic from that to a certain extent. But then obviously if you do it in such a bad way, it actually leaves a bit of a stigma and a stench on those you're pushing.
Yeah. So our semi-finals are set. We've got corporate favourite Jeff Jarrett facing Benoit, and Bret Hart taking on Sting. So our commentators for the evening are a very smart-looking Tony Schiavone and Bobby the Brain Heenan. And after another lengthy intro from them, let's face it, Liam, what would it be? What kind of a WCW pay-per-view would it be without us spending about 10 minutes before the show actually has a wrestling match on it?
Yep, let's set the pyro off, let's welcome the live crowd in, let's get them really amped up, and then let's recap a bunch of shit for 10 minutes. That's fantastic strategy, isn't it?
Yeah, it gets crowds veins are pumping. So match number one, it is the first semi-final in the WCW World Title Tournament. Jeff Jarrett versus Chris Benoit. Schiavone notes that the powers that be, who are this group, mysterious sort of group running WCW, which is basically Russo, have booked their favourite Jarrett in the first match to give him plenty of time to rest ahead of the final, assuming he makes it through, of course. The Toronto crowd is raucous from the get-go. They're solidly behind their fellow countrymen. Benoit also has a maple leaf on his tights just for good measure. The match starts out at a very fast pace. Benoit is in total control till the low blow on the floor from Jarrett drops Benoit. Jarrett slows the pace of the match down with a sleeper hold to bring the crowd back down again. Benoit brings the crowd back up again with his rolling German suplexes, which gets a close 2 count. At this point, the Harris brothers, aka Creative Control, in their matching suits and sunglasses, stroll down to ringside. Jarrett lands a top rope cross body block, but Benoit rolls through for a 2 count. Benoit reverses a back suplex attempt with one of his own, goes up top, lands the diving headbutt, but one of Creative Control pull him off. Not like that. Then while the ref's back is turned, the other brother beats up Benoit. This brings out Dustin Rhodes, who hops the rail. He pulls Jarrett off of a pinfall attempt on Benoit, beats up Creative Control as they slide Jarrett's guitar into the ring. While poor ref Charles Robinson is trying to restore order at ringside, Benoit grabs Jarrett in a waistlock while Jarrett's got his guitar. Jarrett then drops the guitar. Benoit picks it up, smacks Jarrett over the head with it to get the match-winning pinfall in 9 minutes, 27 seconds. He then gets assaulted further by Creative Control and a now bleeding Jeff Jarrett. But hey, at least he's got plenty of time to recover. So go to you first, Benno. What do you make of this opener?
Yeah, I mean, just listening to you listed off there, it's the summary is that, isn't it? They had a very good looking match for a while, and then the Russo bullshit had to happen. Like, I loved seeing Benoit come out there going full hometown hero, like you say, with the Canadian flag pants. It felt like Jarrett had his working boots on, and things were going so well. And Vince Russo is like, what would make this better? The Harris boys. Let's throw them out there in a couple of suits. And I don't even know what were the names. It wasn't even Ron and Don Harris.
It was,
It was like
Gerald and Patrick.
was it
As
Gerald
in
and
Gerald
Patrick?
Briscoe and Pat Patterson.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't even pick up on that.
It gets better because I remember this from what we always used to discuss, the old Channel 5 Worldwide hour around this time. Scott Hudson's, I remember famously, he said that their full names were Gerald Fitzpatrick and Patrick Fitzgerald.
See, I kind of like that.
For fuck's sake.
But,
I still don't meet them.
Bear in mind, though, that this kind of shit's been going on for at least a decade beforehand. With Ted DiBiase's manservant being called Virgil. It's been going on a long old while. But yes, this becomes, and I think throughout the whole show, it becomes a lot more blatant.
Definitely, yeah. There's other nods there as well, aren't there? But yeah, for some reason the Harris boys were always like Vince Russo favorites, which I never got. They were always guaranteed a job if Vince Russo was around. Nice to see Dustin Rhodes, I suppose, on the other side. But yeah, all of the nonsense with the guitar and then the endless beatdown afterwards was just distracting from what, if left alone, would have been a nice little 3.5-star match. Instead, it was a Vince Russo match.
I think that's not going to be the last time you say that sort of thing tonight. But yeah, Liam, after the opener, this one was the crowd are up for it.
Yeah, despite that usual segue after the pyro that we mentioned, they were very much up for it, and I think that was partly because even though there was that gap, that ill-advised gap, they picked the perfect match of everything on deck. This was the one to put first. Obviously, you got the fact you have 2 semi-finals, and so you want to get them out of the way and give the guys enough time to rest behind the scenes. But we don't get the second semi-final for a little bit. But you did acknowledge there seemed to be a bit of a story there. Like they wanted to make sure that Jarrett was favourable, assuming he would go through. So fair enough. But yeah, this is absolutely the first match to have, and this will be the start of something that Battle Rights should have been one of the early highlights of the Vince Russo reign, because these two clearly had instant chemistry. They're both hard workers. They were in sync. They could wrestle just every week and still produce something new. Jeff Jarrett was never going to be the star that Russo was desperately trying to make him, but he was absolutely top shelf in the ring. So to have him in what would evolve into a US title feud, because these two would fight for the vacant belt in a ladder match at the next pay-per-view, and they were supposed to have a big a 3 falls or 3 match thing, the Triple Threat Theatre at Sold Out 2000, until Jeff Jarrett got a concussion. This should have really been something that helped set the tone in a good way for some of this. So it was good to watch those two wrestle. You had all the shenanigans and all that, but the one thing I'll give them a pass for it is that it's the first match. You're trying to stick it to the popular one, and the popular one wins the match to a big roar from the crowd. And if that was the only match or one of 2 matches that had outside interference by the copious truckload on it, I'd say fair enough. But well, we'll see how this unfolds, shall we?
Yeah. But it's a really interesting point you made earlier there. You said about that Jarrett and Benoit could face each other multiple times and have a different match each time. Now, I think that goes back to, you think about their wrestling roots. You got Jarrett in Memphis, you had Benoit in Stampede, and then also coming over to do a few matches in continental Europe. And those territories, all of them, are where you are wrestling in front of the same crowd for consecutive weeks or months. You generally, you're not touring massively. You're in the same places, so you have to mix it up, especially in the European tournaments where they literally would do like 20 nights in a row in the same venue, in a tent in Bremen or Hamburg or whatever. And I think that is where they would get that from. That teaches them how to do that.
Yeah, and they had the work rate, clearly a passion for the business, and the natural ability to be able to pull it off as well. They had all the tools to just be those guys who were never going to be mere mid card. There was always that level. People call it upper mid card, and there were two guys that were just such naturals for it. And as soon as they found each other in this match, I'm wondering, maybe the guys backstage, and we know Russo had final say, but there would be the agents and all that, but maybe collectively those overseeing things probably saw this match and saw the way they were just natural bedfellows, and that might have led to this decision later on to run that match. I know the withdrawal with Scott Hall at Starcade made a bit more of a last minute thing, but they must have looked at this match and thought, yeah, we're going to run this back. Absolutely, we can have some fun with this.
Cool.
Yeah,
Okay, so up next, Mike Tenay is backstage with Cruiserweight Champion Disco Inferno, who is defending against Evan Courageous next. And for no apparent reason, Disco seems to have put up $25,000 of his own money on the line, as well as the title. He then gets beaten up by a returning Jarrett and Creative Control. And it's also worth noting that the age-old WCW sound problems prevail with us because the mic keeps cutting out. So, next match, number 2, it is for the WCW Cruiserweight title. Evan Courageous, accompanied by Medusa, takes on the champion, Disco Inferno, accompanied by Tony Marinara. I'm right in saying that he was in ECW beforehand, wasn't he?
Full-blooded Italians,
Tony
yeah.
Mamaluke.
Tony Mamaluke, thank you, Benno. Yes, I knew he was Tony someone. There you go, Tony Mamaluke, yes.
Slightly less offensive name.
Slightly, yeah.
Only slightly.
Named after a meatball now instead, yes. So yeah, Courageous comes out holding hands with Medusa. The two of them look smitten with one another. It will never last, obviously, it's wrestling. We then go backstage. We see Disco crawling to the curtain. He looks in a bad way, and to make matters worse, he's attacked on the entranceway by Courageous as the bell rings. Tony Marinara joins the ringside commentary crew once his headset works, because we've still got sound problems because it's WCW. It's implied that Disco Inferno could be sleeping with the fishes, as they say, if he loses this match. So nice cheery storyline. It's still not explained why Disco's put some of his own money on the line as well as the title. Contrasting with the opener, though, the crowd are pretty quiet for this match. Disco is mostly on the offensive, except for the odd counter from Evan Courageous. Then the wrestling is basic, to say the least. I'm sure we'll go into more detail on that in a moment. They managed to almost botch a hip toss. Disco leaps at Courageous on the floor. He's countered with a drop kick to the midsection, which turns the tide in favour of the challenger. There are now loud, boring chants from the crowd. Disco then jumps to the floor to badmouth Medusa, who slaps him in the face. Tony Marinara then starts talking to Medusa at ringside. That distracts Courageous. Courageous grabs Marinara by the throat. Disco gets a chair. He goes to hit Courageous, but accidentally lays out Marinara instead. Courageous then hits a springboard cross-body block, which they nearly screw up, for the 3 count in 8 minutes, 28 seconds to become the new Cruiserweight champion. Slightly different kind of a match, but still got lots of interference and foreign objects, Benno.
Of course. I mean, yeah, it was, they completely lost the crowd in this one. Like, and it's no surprise because, Evan Courageous, I don't think he ever had the potential. Never mind, got good. Disco Inferno wasn't going to carry him, was he? Like, you could tell Disco looked like looked like a lost little boy when the crowd started chanting boring, and you could tell like the wheels were turning his head. Oh, should I do a dance? Should I go outside and mess around with Medusa? Maybe they'll pay attention then. I think he went for the latter in the end. But yeah, this just never mind the stipulation behind whether Disco would die if he lost the belt, apparently, because he owed money to, was it Tony Marinara's dad or something? He was doing a very obnoxious, like, mob character on commentary. It was very heavy-handed, but never mind that. I think Disco literally died in this match, and this match died for the crowd as well, and it felt every bit of the 8 minutes it was.
Yeah, I mean, he was only in his like 3rd year as a pro at this point, so he was pretty inexperienced. Yeah.
Yeah, so there we go about the whole Russo giving youngsters a chance. This is, he will literally do it to absolutely anyone and everyone going, and there's no sort of, well, hang on a second, are they ready? Are we doing this? Are we doing this in the right amount of moderation? Well, they were hinting that someone would die when, at the end of this match, and as a result, it was the match itself. There's a certain irony there, and yeah, you're right. You're right, Benno. This the commentary shtick from Tony was just unbearable. He's just repeating the same hackneyed, cliched tripe over and over again that presumably Vince Russo has like seen on the film he watched the night before. But what made me laugh most about this was that you've got Disco Inferno in there, who since then, with the benefit of hindsight, has spent many years going on sanctimonious social media rants about the spot monkeys and the people who can't wrestle properly, about how it needs to be about engaging the fans with storytelling and character and all that. And there he is doing the blandest fucking cruiserweight match you've seen in your life and getting boring chants. So do as I say, not as I do, apparently, when Glenn Gilberti embarks on Twitter. This match, oh my God, this was bad. And the thing, it would get worse, the Cruiserweight division from here, because, yeah, you said they wouldn't last, Dean. Yep, it'll be Medusa versus Courageous for the title at the next pay-per-view. And
There
then
you go.
Medusa versus Oklahoma, which is Ed Ferrara doing a really distasteful Jim Ross impersonation.
Oh, we'll get
at
to
the
him
next
in a
pay
bit.
per view.
Don't you worry about that.
But
yeah.
that's the story of the cruiserweight title at this point, and it said, oh, by the way, there is not that it helps much, but there is sort of a storyline to why he's putting up his own money. Basically, he owes 25 grand to Marinera and his family, apparently. So this is his desperate way of trying to raise the funds to pay him off, which then begs the question that if he needs 25k, how is he putting up 25k in this bet?
Yeah.
I don't
Who
think
needs
Vince Russo
logic?
knows the answer to that.
Yeah, who needs logic?
Is the answer because WCW?
No, it's because Vince fucking Russo.
Russo, yeah. But also the thing with this that got me was that there didn't seem to be any significance to the pre-match attack on Disco. It wasn't like he got attacked and then lost the match in a minute because he'd been attacked. He comes to the ring and then just has a regular match.
Yeah, but if they didn't do that, Dean, there would have been the ending of one match followed by the entrance of another one. And who the hell does that sort of dead air?
We have to have a skit in the middle.
Yeah. There were no, remember, there were no poppets, there were no fidget spinners back in this day. So apparently Vince just had to write a bunch of random stuff to to get rid of his tics.
It's a pay-per-view and he's still scared people are going to change the channel. That's Vince.
Well, we talk about backstage segments and we go straight to the backstage and we see Bret Hart arrive at the venue. We then switch to see Jeff Jarrett get lambasted by an off-camera Vince Russo. I don't think it's identified as him at any point, but it's clearly his voice. Jarrett has the rest of the evening to prove himself, apparently. We then go backstage to Mean Gene interviewing screaming Norman Smiley, who's dressed in Toronto Maple Leafs ice hockey gear for the local pop. And Smiley gets freaked out by someone dropping a metal tool off camera. And we're then into our third match after three little backstage segments. And this is for the inaugural WCW Hardcore title, where Brian Knobbs, accompanied by Jimmy Hart, takes on Norman Smiley. So yeah, they've obviously taken this concept from the WWF because that's where Vince Russo has come from. The opening minutes are mostly them hitting each other with those thin metal rubbish bins and Smiley using the ice hockey stick he brought with him. Knobbs then starts trying to strip Smiley of the protective pads he came to the ring wearing. They fight down the aisle, Knobbs repeatedly hitting Smiley over the head with a bin lid, and then they go to the backstage area. Smiley gets hit with another bin. Knobbs gets a table out. He drops it against the wall, throws Smiley through it. They are fighting through piles and piles of cardboard boxes for some reason and food supplies. They then fight in the lift or the elevator for our American friends. The door shuts. When it reopens, Hart tries to hit Smiley with another pin, but hits Knobs by mistake, which allows Smiley to get the pin to become the first WCW hardcore champion, because obviously getting hit by Jimmy Hart with a thin metal pin is enough to knock you out for 3 seconds. An angry Knobs then hurls Hart into a bunch of burger buns. I really did say that, didn't I? On pay-per-view. Your thoughts on this one, Benno? Our inaugural hardcore championship match.
Another great Russo. Well, it worked in the WWF. We got Road Dogg over, so let's do the same thing. Have a hardcore division. Like, I'll be honest, I remember being like, I would have been about 15 around this time, and I've got distinct memories of being at that that WCW house show tour the year after.
Yes.
I'm being a massive fan of this iteration of Norman Smiley. I'm not saying I was a smart 15-year-old, but for whatever reason, I really enjoyed this at the time. Hasn't aged well. It's just a load of interchangeable weapons shots. They all look like they're made of tinfoil. Nothing looks good. It's getting Brian Knobbs back on TV, as if we needed Brian Knobbs back on TV. And yeah, Norman Smiley was over at that point, but there's definitely more interesting things you could probably do with Norman Smiley.
Yeah, but I don't know about you, Benno, but to me, and this is purely watching something from 1999 with 2021 eyes, but all the shots to the head, even though it is just thin metal objects made to make a noise, but all the shots to the head make me kind of shuffle awkwardly in my seat.
Yeah, you never know what they're going to use next, and like you say, most of it's like it is like made of plastic or made of polystyrene, and none of it particularly looks brutal. But yeah, it's 90s wrestling, so you never know what weapon they're going to pull out next and what daft thing they're going to do. Not worth it for the 1999 WCW hardcore division, to say the least.
Yeah.
Well, there was that one shot. I don't know if you guys remember that after the pinfall, and obviously Knobbs shakes it off immediately, gets up, and absolutely clobbers Smiley on the back of the head. And you see Smiley's head just jolts from the impact, especially because he doesn't see it coming. That one was a bit cringe for me. But yeah, it's fair to say the whole the hot period, the zeitgeist for having a hardcore division had long gone. There were some. Do you remember there was like the feud with Raven and Hack and Bam Bam Bigelow, and it really had a bit of fun to it, and it was still a thing at the time. And they did it with a certain vigor, and they used some different stuff and a bit of creativity, and it really caught on. But yeah, a few months after that, we were just relegated to all these trash can shots, and the Junkyard Battle Royal, which we covered on a previous episode, and hopefully I'll never have to watch again. But I've got to admit, when you say, Benno, about liking Screaming Norman Smiley, yeah, it's a dumb gimmick in a dumb division. But for me, and I think Dean agrees with me here because we've discussed it before, it's just a testament to how great Norman Smiley is. He makes it work. He gets reactions from the crowd just because he's so funny in the role, even though half the time he has to remember to scream. Because he gets hit, he gets hit, he sees the cameras there, and he goes, ah! And as we've said on other matches, I think that John Tenter Bubba Rogers feud is a good recent example, Dean. But I will give bonus points for a good old-fashioned bit of old-school Jimmy Hart backfiring. So that was a classic. That was a classic heel backfire finish, wasn't it? Where they're both in the elevator, and he just does this random shot and hits this guy. That made me laugh. But apart from that, yeah, that is pretty much just a few redeeming qualities in a sea of shite.
We then see a video package highlighting the feud between the Filthy Animals and the Revolution, which is our next match. And when have backstage interviews with Perry Saturn, who doesn't make any sense, but that's his gimmick at the time. And the Revolution saying, well, not an awful lot. We then have more backstage skits with Disco Inferno and Tony Marinara, and Jarrett and Creative Control walking backstage with a 2x4 looking for someone. So that's another 3 segments between matches. So match number 4, it is an intergender elimination match which pits the Revolution of Perry Saturn, Dean Malenko and Asia with Shane Douglas versus the Filthy Animals of Eddie Guerrero, Billy Kidman and Tori Wilson, and they're accompanied by Conan. So Douglas joins the commentary booth, and surprise, surprise, his headset doesn't work at first. The speculation in this match is that it could end up with Asia or Tori facing all three of their opponents. We start off with Guerrero and Malenko, followed by a series of dives to the outside. A face-painted fan tries to attack Malenko with a Canadian flag. We then get Asia and Tori Wilson fighting briefly, with Tori selling her ankle big. Guerrero tends to her. Kidman tries to intervene, but gets shoved by Eddie straight into a roll-up from Malenko for the first fall, eliminating Kidman in about 3 minutes. They continue to argue and shove each other. With Tori injured, Guerrero is effectively facing all three opponents himself now. Conan leaves ringside to join his tag team partner Kidman back in the dressing room. Asia executes a delayed vertical suplex on Guerrero, which the fans applaud her for, not realizing obviously it's Guerrero doing all the work for that move. Guerrero lands a Hurricane Rana, grabbing Malenko's leg to cover for a 3 count after 5 minutes to eliminate Malenko. Asia's working over Guerrero. She holds his arms behind his back for a Saturn super kick, but he moves and Saturn nails Asia by mistake. Saturn gets thrown out of the ring. Guerrero climbs to the top for a frog splash on Asia to eliminate her after 6.5 minutes, which leaves Saturn on his own against Guerrero and theoretically Tori Wilson. Saturn hits a Death Valley driver on Guerrero for a close 2 count as Douglas vents his fury at the commentary desk. Saturn misses the top rope elbow drop. Guerrero goes to tag Tori, realizes she's injured, so he tries for another Hurricane Rana. This one gets a 2 count. Saturn clamps on the rings of Saturn for a submission, which eliminates Guerrero after 10 minutes. So we're left with Saturn against a very worried-looking Tori Wilson. She kicks Saturn low for a 2 count. Douglas leaves the commentary desk, hops onto the apron with the referee distracted. Saturn lands a low blow on Tori for the win in 10 minutes 55 to win the match for the Revolution. And breathe. Benno, your thoughts on a very busy 11 minutes of action?
I mean, the key line there is Saturn pins Tori with a low blow like that. You got to protect Tori at all costs, that's the star in the match. Yeah, to be fair, the crowd treated her like she was as well. It was sacrilege here and those Tori chants when the lads were in there trying to pull something out here. There's a lot of good talent in this match, but you wouldn't really know it just because, again, the overbooked mess that it is, the elimination stipulation, which, is okay. You want to do a Survivor Series type match, but not in the amount of time these lads are and ladies are given. It just doesn't work. And you just look at this match and just think, God, Billy Kidman, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Perry Saturn, would love them to be doing anything else on this card. Instead they're here, and it's about Asia and Tori Wilson, isn't it? And neither of them are really up to much when it comes to a ring.
No, safe to say. And of course, we've mentioned before, but it's worth mentioning again. Asia, spelt Asya, was the answer to China, spelt Chyna, because of course Asia is bigger than China.
There's number 2.
Oh, it's petty. It's so petty.
I really hate professional wrestling sometimes. I really do.
I mean, I was just about to say one thing about AEW is that as much as they are trying to rival WWE, there hasn't been this petty taking shots at them.
Oh no, I wouldn't go.
Listen,
yeah, I'm a big AEW fan, and I wouldn't go that
blatant.
Mr. Brody Lee, the sledgehammer to the throat.
True,
yeah,
true.
There's been a
throne,
few.
Yeah. But,
sloppy shop.
What was that again?
That sloppy shop shout from Taz as well, talking about WWE's. Was it about that COVID issues? I think I remember that was being one. It was all. I mean, let's say Triple H started it though, calling them a piss on company. So I think when you're AW, you're allowed to fire back.
Yeah. And we did have, was it CM Punk the other week saying that it's the first time professional wrestling's been in New York for however many years.
Oh no, to be fair, the CM Punk lines, because he's not been too obtuse with it, and because he's had some genuine grievances. I think he's the one guy on the roster who can come out and say things like, oh, I've got my passion back now and I haven't had it for so many years, because that's believable. But some of the other stuff it's borderline voodoo kin mafia and stuff like that. All stuff that you see from it makes you think Vince Russo's having a little hand in AEW, which is like everyone's nightmare scenario, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Stick to the Batman podcast with R.D. Reynolds.
Yeah. We go backstage, you'll be surprised to hear, after that match, where we see Buff Bagwell being attacked in his dressing room by Jarrett and Creative Control.
How many Jeff Jarrett appearances on the show is that now? Are we doing a ticker, a counter? We should be.
Well, yeah. We've had the match, then we had the instant attacking Disco, then we've had him roaming around with a 2x4, him being told that he needs to prove himself, and now this segment. So
just
that makes
it
5.
And we've had how many matches? 4.
We're coming up to match number 5. And we've now had we've had 2 wrestlers being attacked before their match.
And there's people still on social media defending him. They still insist that this era of wrestling is what we need to aspire to. Oh, it's hurting me just saying it. Oh my days.
Let's move on to match number 5. It's a loser must retire match. Obviously, the loser. Now, I can't stress this enough, gentlemen. The loser of this match, right? They can never wrestle again.
And that is it.
Yeah.
Kaput.
That is it. Yeah.
Yep.
They can never wrestle again. Perish the thought that the loser of this match will be reinstated in less than 1 month's time. Okay, let's just put that thought right out of your heads.
To be fair to them, they do the best to avoid the wear retirement. They just keep saying over and over again, loser hangs up their boots. So maybe they just meant that was literally what they meant. He's going to hang his boots up nicely
on a pole.
And leave the arena.
Would they be hung up on a pole for the next match?
Oh, don't give Russo any ideas.
I was going to say, if it is Russo, yeah, or a forklift truck or something. But what I don't understand is that if you've got a loser must retire match, something of such magnitude, but we don't have a video package or anything to tell us how we have arrived at this point.
That's because we have how we've arrived. They're 2 guys who've been beaten up by the powers that be in their heavies. And they're just like, we don't like you. One of you has to go. Yeah, there's that high stakes match for you.
But then even then they could have just showed a package to show that bit. But hey,
do you know what the sad part is though? Even though we say that, and I know technically WWE did get better after Russo left, but just to emphasise that they didn't get immediately better. We still haven't yet had the point where the Helmsley McMahon regime, you remember that storyline?
Yeah.
That's about 6 weeks away in this timeline, and they would do a thing where they're running roughshod over it, and they would make was it The Rock and Mankind had to fight in a pink slip on a pole match? so
not worse. The only thing worse than Russo is budget Russo, isn't it?
So it's the same stipulation. Oh yeah, we don't like you 2 guys. We're gonna make one of you get fired, almost like a Colosseum style, isn't it? Send them in, make a fight to the death, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And they've added the poll for good measure. And this came after this Bagwell Hennig match.
I see. Russo tribute, or both budget Russo, as you said. So, so yeah, Bagwell's music plays. He doesn't come out. Creative Control and Jarrett come out instead.
6.
All 3 men attack Hennig. Then Bagwell comes down with the 2x4 that Jarrett had previously. The others leave the ringside area, which kind of makes you wonder what the point of it all was. But it's a slow-paced match with Hennig mostly in charge. Bagwell hits a slam, does his strut, misses a knee drop, and it's back to Hennig on the offense. The only move that seems to get a reaction from the crowd are chops from Hennig, and they get your standard woo, and they're very loud chops, as we said. The end comes when Hennig sends Bagwell into the corner, but his follow-up charge is cut off with a boot to the face by Bagwell. Bagwell climbs to the middle rope, hits the Buff blockbuster out of nowhere, and gets the pin in 7 minutes and 47 seconds to allegedly retire a somewhat emotional-looking Curt Hennig, who, as I said, got reinstated by the powers that be a month later. What do you make of this one? it just felt a bit lacking to me. Did you find that, Benno?
Yeah, it's kind of like, that's okay. Senegal would want to go out a 7-minute match with Buff Bagwell. Like, imagine this was his retirement match. How depressing that'd be. But I will say the crowd bought it. Like, I don't know why they bought it. Like you say, there was no dramatic video at the start. There's a match about the match that made it feel like it was end of an era. But there was almost like a quasi like emotional moment at the end. And obviously, it being WCW, it was like, to the back. We don't need to show this emotional moment, and they cut right away from it. But the crowd bought it and were kind of into Hennig for that reason. I think there was a Mr. Perfect chant at some point in this match as well. It was like it was the early 90s once again. So I suppose it worked in a way, but yeah, typical WCW night, 7-minute retirement match that leads to absolutely nothing.
Was there a segment after? If there was a segment after this, I haven't made a note of it, but maybe that's because by this point my brain has been pounded into jelly by all the backstage segments. But
I just went
Sting
to
maybe backstage or something.
Quite possibly because he's on next. Yes.
Yeah, Dean, I really feel the need to point out here, and you seem to have been very flattering towards the writers of this product when you allude to the fact that Hennig would actually come back a month later. I thought I knew around the rough time he would return.
Yeah.
And so I've gone to, do you remember the old site DDT Digest? I used to love this
I loved
site when I was
DDT
younger.
Digest.
And it's
yes,
still
indeed.
up because it's all text. It's still up. DDTdigest.com. It is the ultimate old school resource for WCW fans. Check it out.
There are some contributions for me on there from when I was at university in the 90s.
Oh, you have to point me out to those. That's cool. But for now, I'm on a search. I just want to see when exactly he came back. So I've taken one guess at it, and guess what my guess was?
3 weeks.
No, I've gone to the Nitro review for the very next night after this show, and as I suspected, as my memory was hinting to me, and as common sense hints to anyone who's seen this Russo shite in the past, yes, he did a sort of retirement speech where he got emotional and walked out. He told Buff Bagwell backstage that there was no hard feelings. He had to do what he had to do. He then ran in on Buff Bagwell's match that night and beat Buff Bagwell up and sided with the powers that be. So, of course, he swerved and joined them. And you'd like to think there's a bit of storyline continuity there whereas he's had to join the bad guys to get his job back because they're the ones firing him. But I also remember from the aforementioned WCW Worldwide on Channel 5 that there would be a couple of weeks after this, Creative Control would leave the group and turn on them and just become the good old Harris boys again and get rid of Creative Control. They then had a tag team grudge match with Jarrett and Hennig, the remnants of the powers that be's active wrestlers group, I suppose you could say. And they did a thing where Hennig came out and Jeff Jarrett didn't come out. His music played and he didn't come out. And so the Harris boys just beat the crap out of Hennig. And this was about 2 weeks later.
They're packing an awful lot in those 2 weeks.
I wish I was making this up. If someone wants, to turn around, no, you're just exaggerating. This didn't happen. Go look it up. This is how he'd run through stuff, and he wonders why nothing has an effect. Yep. Can you imagine if a TV show like Breaking Bad went through storylines this fast, for instance?
No.
Well, you could just picture a different show that got cancelled halfway through the first season, because that's what it'd be. Netflix with their ever-present axe, they're willing to cut shows that don't instantly connect. And if Russo ever wrote, oh my god, would they make it past 3 episodes? You'd be mid-binge, and suddenly episodes 6 to 10 will disappear. Because now we've seen this, and actually we know you haven't seen these last 5 episodes yet, but we're doing you a favour. We're pulling it from the platform now.
Yeah, disappeared quicker than a Ric Flair story on Story Time.
But he knows TV, bro. He doesn't do his wrestling, bro. He's a TV writer, bro. Fuck off. I'm just going to get more bitter as we go along. I'm sorry, guys, in advance.
Match number 6, everyone. It's the second semi-final of the WCW World Title Tournament as Sting faces Bret Hart. Bret Hart comes down to a tremendous ovation, as you would imagine, in Toronto, wearing a Wayne Gretzky Canadian National Ice Hockey Team shirt. assuming it's not a network edit, he has really uninspiring music in WCW. Because I'd have thought, like they did with Hogan and I suppose with people like Savage and Flair, it was like classical music anyway. But you know how they did a pastiche of Hogan's old music where it's like one note different or something. I thought they would have tried to do something like that with Bret Hart, but no such luck.
Honestly, I didn't mind this particular. I know exactly what this iteration is, and it was a little bit more Hitman-y, and it was still a bit
Yeah.
generic, but I thought it was okay. They had a theme song before this, which was just a blatant rip-off of his WWE Hitman theme.
Ah,
This version
Yeah.
sounds like it's been taken from like an advert or something, but I thought it worked. I did kind of like it. I have a bit of a soft spot for it, to be honest.
oh,
Yeah,
there you
I
go.
like the rip off version, the wow one, but it's Jimmy Hart ripping off, I think, his own work. Did he not do the original Bret Hart theme as well? Like
Oh, quite
that's just pure
possibly,
Jimmy Hart.
yeah.
There's still
Or
Jimmy Hart, though, isn't it?
Johnston, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Maybe, yeah.
We'll have to find out. But yeah, that's I know I'm with you, Benno. I like a good rip-off song.
Yeah, me
Like,
too.
yeah,
Honestly,
Jimmy
but
Hart was
this.
the king of that.
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. I mean, we've discussed this
DDP's
before.
music,
There's
Oh,
so many good
Ravens,
WCW rip-offs, but not
Ravens,
this
yeah,
one.
that's Jericho's.
yeah.
Just not this one, I'm afraid.
Not
Maybe
this
it's
one.
just me. Well, it's
No.
just me, but
So Sting comes out. He's not being booed, but he's not really being cheered either. And after a lengthy stare down and a verbal confrontation, Bret launches into a flurry of punches. He's in total control till a low blow from Sting, which gets plenty of boos. And Sting is playing a not so subtle heel role here, which is understandable given the circumstances. The match spills to the outside. Bret gets thrown into the commentary table. Sting misses a stinger splash and lands badly. They go back into the ring. The advantage is back with Bret, who comes off the top rope onto Sting, but Sting pulls referee Mickey J in the way and they both go down. This brings out Lex Luger and Miss Elizabeth with a baseball bat, but Luger hits Sting with the bat in the back of the knee. Bret then takes the bat from Luger, kicks him low, hits him in the throat with the bat, and then puts Luger in the sharpshooter. Mickey J gets up, rings the bell as he's disqualified Sting due to outside interference. Bret protests the decision, so the match continues. Bret continues to be on the offense till Sting lifts a boot up as Bret comes off the middle rope. Sting goes straight for the Scorpion Deathlock in the middle of the ring, but Bret punches the back of the knee where Sting was hit with the bat, which causes Sting to release the hold. Bret then grabs Sting's legs, hoists himself up to an upright position, locks it on the same move, which of course he calls the sharpshooter, and Sting taps out. Bret is through to the final to meet fellow Canadian Chris Benoit here in Canada. Benno, what do you make of our second semi-final?
Yeah, as a young kid, this would be a dream match to me. The sharpshooter versus the Scorpion Deathlock, like you say. Probably not what I imagined as a kid. I remember them having another match, was at Halloween Havoc one year, that I think was a bit better than this. But I don't know. It feels like Prime can't be our Sting. Like he comes out there in his t-shirt and his baggy leather pants, and he's just. You can tell sometimes with Sting he'd rather be anywhere else. I think there's moments where they had the nice respect moments at the end and stuff, and you can tell he genuinely respects Bret, but I bet he didn't respect the booking of this thing, because it was another one where it was going okay enough, I suppose, in the early stages, and then like you said, we had to get Lex Luger out there, we had to have the nonsense with the bat, and we had to have a DQ finish because Vince Russo.
Yeah. Also, I'm sure this is just pure coincidence, but the two semi-final matches went exactly the same amount of time, 9 minutes 27 seconds.
Oh wow. two matches. The two matches on the show you'd probably, other than the main event, that you'd really love to see go 15 to 20 as well. But we got to get that screaming Norman Smiley hardcore title match in. We got to get Evan Courageous in. We got to get all those Jeff Jarrett segments in.
Got to get our six Jarrett ones in.
And counting, by the way. And just to piggyback on what you guys were alluding to, as you both pointed out respectively, we've got Sting coming out, not getting booed, not getting cheered. His performance is entirely apathetic. Congratulations, Vince. You fucking broke Sting, who at the age of 62 is looking amazing motivated, and he looks like he's 32 at times, and he's being used the right way, and he wants to be involved. Thankfully he's gonna see out his career the right way. Yeah, he had some great times in TNA and some really wobbly ones as well. It was very hot and cold. WWE was a bust, but it looks like he's gonna finish exactly how guys like us three and everyone else we know who dearly love those stories. That's how we remember Sting, one of the greatest of all time. But on this show, fuck's sake.
Well, you'll be surprised to learn that we next go backstage with Mean Gene interviewing Chris Benoit for his reactions facing Bret in the final. Before we go to Mike Tenay with Lex Luger, who is now wearing a surgical neck collar following Bret attacking him with the bat. He is massively overselling. He says that he can't compete tonight. He says he'll write a check to all the fans for missing out on seeing him wrestle. As Shivani asks, how many more ways will he try and get out of a wrestling match? I got to say, I love this. It kind of reminded me of where we've been doing our Nitro watch-alongs in early '96, and we had is Lex Luger a face or a heel, and he was basically a heel but pretending to be a face whenever Sting was in his sight. And this has that same completely insincere comedic feel to it.
Absolutely. Luger shows he can do this sort of shtick, and it is quite funny. But to borrow a reference that was already made with something else, this is like a pound shop version of that. And it is slightly amusing the same way Screaming Normal was slightly amusing earlier. But yeah, we know the context how it can be much better. And as we're about to find out, it's one of many faces of Luger we see tonight, because he's gone from, he's gone into the Russo era as part of a heel tandem with Sting, who feuded with yellow and red Hulk Hogan. And you can imagine WCW fans like siding with Hogan against Luger and Sting, like fuck. And he swerved on Sting in the match. Now he's being a cow faking the injury, and he's got a few more storyline depths up his sleeve. I think by the looks of things, he encountered more character development in this one show tonight than he did throughout that entire run, from the first Nitro when he showed back up all the way through to the New World Order showing up and him declaring war as a babyface against him. There was more character development tonight than there was throughout that whole 9-month bloody patch.
Okay, well, we'll move on to match number 7. It's a dog collar match between Vampiro, accompanied by Jerry Only, and Berlin, accompanied by The Wall. Again, no video package to explain the stipulation match. Before the match begins, though, Steve Williams and, yep, here we go, Oklahoma, Ed Ferrara, mocking Jim Ross with a black hat, barbecue sauce, and droopy face, because, of course, this was an era of exquisite taste. He joins the commentary table, and throughout the match, he mocks Ross's trademark commentary style. Talks about Berlin's apparent college football background and how he competed in the Sauerkraut Bowl. In the ring, we have Vampiro fighting The Wall and Berlin fighting Jerry Only. The other end of the dog collar isn't attached to anyone yet. I've got no idea what's going on here, basically. Now the Wall's got the collar on. He lands a huge chokeslam on Vampiro. Wall goes to make the cover, but Berlin gets in the ring and pulls him off. Again, not like that. And the two argue. Wall takes the collar off, throws it to Berlin. The Wall then leaves the ringside area. We now have Berlin v Vampiro as advertised, but now no one's wearing the dog collar at all. Then Jerry Only gets in the ring. They're double teaming Vampiro to abject silence from the crowd. Vampiro locks on a camel clutch with the chain wrapped around Berlin's neck and wins the match by submission. Steve Williams then enters the ring and beats both Vampiro and Jerry Only up. Oh man, Benno, your take on this?
Yeah, I mean,
Come on, think of this as a therapy session. Come on now.
Oh, what was going on? Just what was going on? That was my issue. And you've got this obnoxious commentary shouting over everything, and it's not even like the Oklahoma character was a good Jim Ross impression. It was just crap. It was just repeating Austin over again. All of the the basic like stuff that Jim Ross would do, and it was never funny, was it? Like, at least if it was offensive and funny, you could maybe give it that. It was just offensive and pointless, and I mean, it's not, to be fair though, it was distracting me from a very bad match, so maybe I should say it's a positive, because like you said, I don't know what was going on with the dog collar. At one point, I think it was attached to the wall. At one point, nobody was attached to the dog collar. I think the lads lost track of what was going on in the match. Jerry only was in there taking bumps, which I'd forgotten about that he got involved to that degree, dressed up as like a mini Vampiro, and it was just a lot of bad ideas somehow in 5 minutes, and they squashed them all in. Like, again, Vince Russo, WCW the still.
Yeah, but I mean, you're absolutely spot on. The repeating something 3 times shtick that he did throughout the match as Oklahoma, it wasn't funny the first time, and it was just very, very annoying. I mean, maybe the character, I suppose the character is supposed to be annoying. You're not meant to like him, but it wasn't the good kind of heel heat, was it?
Well, no, because the idea of a heel being annoying is that it makes people want to tune in to watch him get punched in the face. And this just makes you wonder why the bloody hell you're watching this, and you're probably going to switch off. So all this fear from Vince Russo about, oh yeah, if I don't have segment after segment after segment, if I don't have things going on, people tune off. Well, no, they're going to tune off because of it at this rate. And even though we've had match after match so far that has definitely got maybe a line 4 corners of Vince Russo Bingo, I think this match has been the full house getter, hasn't it? We've had major blow off stipulation for a feud that no one even knew was really happening. Match runs sub 5 minutes anyway. Said stipulation doesn't even get used or adhered to properly. We've got seconds getting in and trying to register pinfalls. We've got a really distasteful act involved. We've got said act doing really bad commentary. We've got a duo splitting up because everyone's got to get together and then split up every week. So we've got the whole lot. The only thing we're missing is a fucking bowl.
And no one gets over either, because Dr. Death comes in at the end and beats up Vampiro anyway.
Yep,
so
post-match shenanigans. I missed that post-match shenanigans. Sorry. Thanks for the spot there, Benno. That is bingo. That is Vince Russo bingo. We have a winning card. Please come and collect your winnings.
Mike Tenay is backstage with Scott Hall, who's got both the US title and the TV title after Rick Steiner got powerbombed through the entrance stage by Sid on TV and was unable to defend the title. Hall would later throw the belt in the rubbish, where it was then found by Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Lovely stuff. He says that anyone who wants a title match can come find him. He also looks absolutely off his face, but more on that later. We then see Kurt Hennig leave the venue for allegedly the last time ever, something which is given all of 5 seconds of airtime. And then we see Kimberly enter the building for her match with David Flair later on. It's then time for match number 8, Lex Luger with Miss Elizabeth versus Meng. Luger's still wearing the neck brace. We do get a video package to give us the background behind this match. Luger manages to take his entrance gear off, but keeps the neck brace on as Meng continues to attack him. Luger then lands a vertical suplex, which Meng totally no-sells and throws Luger to the floor. Back in the ring, Luger continues to attack until Meng again stops selling, turns the tables on Luger. But the crowd again are pretty much stony silent for this one. Meng has Luger draped throat first over the ropes as Liz looks furtive at ringside, getting hold of something. She weakly sprays something straight at Luger in such a way that it looks in no way accidental, even though she tries to sell it as that. And then Luger is apparently blinded, at which point Meng rips off Luger's neck brace, applies the Tongan death grip for the pinfall win in 5:23. Well, at least it was short, Benno.
That's the best thing you can say about it, isn't it? And somehow in those 5 minutes they managed to cram a lot of absolute shite. Like, I've got seeing this version of Lex Luger with Liz with him just gives me, like I mentioned earlier, that house show in 2000. It gives me flashbacks to that. I don't know if you're at the Manchester one where they played his theme for about 15 minutes straight and he just never came out. And ever since that total theme is just in my head. Oh, go on.
I was at London. And they did the exact same thing, and I thought it was just some kind of a fuck up. And this is a revelation.
My mind.
21 years later, and my mind has been blown. Yes, because I'm exactly the same boat as you. Every time I hear that music, I am taken back to the wherever it was in London that had that music playing over and over again. And I believe Kurt Hennig also was wrestling in a pair of football shorts from a local sports shop because his gear hadn't arrived on the flight. But
that's amazing. Was it for heat? What were we thinking? What was the idea then? It's just
I don't know. But so it couldn't have been an accident unless Luger somehow missed his cue 2 nights running, which I can't see happening.
Because I just assumed, like, as I got older, I was like, he's probably pilled up in the back, or you know what I mean? He just didn't get. But maybe he was both nights. But wow, that has blown my mind.
Maybe. Was that the same tour where Terry Funk would attack Dustin Rhodes on a nightly basis with a raw chicken?
Yes, that was a part of it. Oh, what else was there? Oh, Hacksaw Jim Duggan working against Finlay was on my show, where Finlay, the man from Belfast, got booed and Hacksaw Jim Duggan got USA chants. Like, of course, again, because WCW.
Because WCW, yeah. But the ringside work of Elizabeth was stellar as always on this one, wasn't it, Benno?
You've found a positive. I didn't think it was possible, but yeah, go on. I'll sign up to that. It's Liz. She's always great.
I mean Liam, the way that the wrestlers are positioned didn't really help, but she in no way made that look like an accident.
No, but to be fair, it looked a little bit. But when they did the replay, there was a bit more of a vision of Meng pulling Luger up so that he was in her line of spray. That helped a little bit. But yeah, but Benno might not be too familiar with our usual comments on Elizabeth's ringside work. Might not have picked up on the sarcasm there. That we've been watching these nitros where Ric Flair comes out with his bevy of beauties, and Ric Flair's at his absolute charismatic best, and pulling every dirty trick in the book and doing this and doing that and cutting all the promos. Woman's just cheating for an Olympic gold medal, it would seem. And then there's Elizabeth, who can't put a pair of handcuffs on Hulk Hogan, can't hold a weapon, smiles when she's supposed to be angry, sits there stony faced when she's supposed to be smiling. She never really got it, did she? They had it right with Randy Savage, where she'd literally just be like the valet. Some people got it like Woman did, and some people do not.
Yeah. So we then go backstage to Bret Hart being interviewed with Mean Gene, and Bret Hart says that he's not going to let anyone down tonight and promises he'll win the title. Then match number 9 for both the United States and Television Championships. It's Scott Hall's Open Challenge. So Hall comes out wearing both belts around his waist. He still looks absolutely off his face. He issues his open challenge. Booker T's music hits because, of course, in wrestling, the sound guy knows all. So it's Scott Hall v Booker T. It's a match which Hall pretty much dominates, but Booker keeps popping back up again. And that seems to be the story of the match, but Hall doesn't really seem to be in much of a fit state to be wrestling here. Hall puts Booker in the sleeper hold as the crowd's attention turns to the entrance aisle because, hey, guess what? Jarrett and Creative Control have turned up. They distract Booker in the corner, which sets him up perfectly for the outside edge for the win for Hall in just 6 minutes 4 seconds. After the match, a large muscular woman who is identified as Midnight comes to the rescue of Booker. It was pretty short, but what did you make of this one, Benno?
Yeah, short is probably the nicest thing you can say about it. Scott Hall he's already on his Toronto night out. He's already started. He's on pre drinks at this point. He's not looking good. Poor Booker T as well. Like, one thing I'll say about Vince Russo sometimes is, like, I think sometimes he can spot when there's talent. Like, he can go, you shouldn't let him book the week to week. You shouldn't let him book anything. You shouldn't let him write anything. Sometimes, though, he'll spot, like, oh, Booker T, that's a guy with a bit of potential. I want to get behind him. I want to do something with him. And he kind of does through his run in WCW, but he had to make him a cosplay Rock, hence the Rocky chance that Booker T gets in this match. And yeah, for one maybe good step forward, there's always 5 steps back, and yeah, Booker ends up looking stupid in the match anyway. And yeah, Scott Hall is already on the piss. It's just a complete mess.
Scott Hall's already on the piss, but yeah, I mean it's one of our former guests, my good mate Doug Williams, and he told us that. If you remember when Doug was in TNA and was getting a big push and won the TV title and beat AJ Styles on pay-per-view, and all of that push came from Vince Russo, because Vince Russo was a big fan, a big proponent of his.
Yeah, that's it. If you let him like maybe pick the talent who should get pushed, you're not going far wrong. You just can't let him do anything after that. That's where it all goes wrong.
Give us some names, Vince, and that's it. Yeah. Any thoughts on this one, Liam?
Yeah, I think the only thing I can add on top of what you guys already covered is just to really stress that Booker T versus Scott Hall, done right, yes, please. You know, and it's just a what could have been situation again. Like we said about a couple of matches on this. But obviously, there's also half the card that should never have been booked in the first place. Speaking of which, Dean, what's the next match?
Well, let's not jump the gun.
Oh yeah, of course. Yep, we have to have a
there is
segment
a backstage
first.
segment.
That's right. Because do you know what? Can you imagine if fidget spinners were actually invented around this point? Can you imagine if someone had just given Russo a fidget spinner? Maybe it just calmed him the fuck down, and he'd write something decent.
Yeah, but we go backstage again before the next match. We see a perfectly healthy looking Lex Luger walking around looking for Elizabeth. This is followed by a video package showing us everything that's led up to our next match, which pits Kimberly against David Flair. Now, I did start writing everything that happened in this video segment, but it was so much, it was too long. So basically, in a nutshell, David Flair attacks everyone and everything with a crowbar and has lost his mind and is targeting Kimberly, who I think has been forced into this match by the powers that be, but it's really hard to keep up with everything that's packed into that video. So yes, match number 10, and we're not expecting a 5-star classic here, is David Flair versus Kimberly. It's also safe to say that Kimberly is not wearing classic wrestling attire either. David grabs his crowbar, which Nick Patrick says he can't use, so David smacks Nick Patrick with it, and to his credit, Nick Patrick actually takes a decent bump from it, which if you're a long-term listener of this show, you'll know it doesn't always happen. David then confronts Kimberly, who falls to her knees, firstly in fear, but then makes out that we're going to see the world's first blowjob on a wrestling pay-per-view. Yeah, it was a different time, everyone. It was 1999. It was
If I don't laugh, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, the moral compass of wrestling was very different then. That's as much as I can say, really. She then removes the protective cup from David's groin, hits him with it, and then kicks him in the balls before missing him badly with a kick to the head. She mounts him, not like that, and starts choking him, but then gets pushed off by David, who grabs his crowbar again. Chris Kanyon then runs in and hits a Russian leg sweep on David. DDP then hobbles to the ring and attacks David, landing a diamond cutter on him. Again, the crowd are pretty silent apart from the odd boo. Arn Anderson then runs in, takes the crowbar from DDP, coming to David's rescue. Paige and Kimberly both leave the ring, and David then attacks Arn from behind with the crowbar. There seems to have been no real decision in the match. It just fizzles out, if it ever fizzled in to begin with. Medical personnel come out to put Arn on a stretcher. This segment takes almost as long as the match itself, with Arn selling it like he's paralyzed, while the crowd ignore it all, choosing to chant "take it off" to someone in the crowd instead. Well, it wasn't a classic. We weren't expecting it to be a classic. Was this bearable, Benno?
I think Vince Russo saw Bueller and Fonzie once and thought, I can do that, but better. And then he booked this. I think that's what happened there. Like, I've got to throw a couple of, I've got to throw a plug in for the Grappl app, because I thought, this was so bad, I don't even know what the Grappl rating is going to be for it. And I was looking through the app, and there's been a few 1-star matches on this show. Vale and Vampiro got 1 star. Meng and Lex Luger got just under a star as an average. This one, average rating from our Grappl users, 0.5 of a star. I don't think I've seen a lower rating, and I feel like it should be lower. I feel like I might have to have a word with Gareth, who runs the Grappl app, and see if we can get negative stars out of it, because he never wanted to do it, but I think if he saw this match, he'd probably go for it.
Well, the thing is, it's the fact that on top of everything else, there's just no decision. It just stops.
Just like everyone just gives up. Just you know what? Let's just go back to the back. This is all.
Can't be asked. Yeah.
Do you know what my favourite part of this match is, guys?
What?
You've got Kimberly, the non-wrestler female, who's being forced into a match when she doesn't wrestle against this unhinged, crowbar-wielding psychopath who's been stalking her for weeks, and Kimberly is the heel. There's there is a massive psychological inquiry that could be made into Vince Russo, very similar to sort of papers that are written about how horror films are put together. Like the old horror films always have these crazy misogynistic tendencies in them. Oh man, this is a shrink session just waiting to happen, this whole thing. But I will point one thing out. The whole David Flair going psycho, given that he can't really wrestle and he's crap at that, I actually really dug the whole psycho character. And little things like him just waffling the referee with a crowbar right at the start of the match. If he was the only person doing that sort of shit on the entire show, if we didn't just have a show full of nonsensical stuff and people getting attacked and all that, if this was a regular wrestling show and he was the character that came out and hit the referee with a crowbar before the match even started, I would be loving it. I'd be pissing myself laughing. It'd be really cool. And we knew he got a little bit better when they added some actual capable hands to his act. In Crowbar, great wrestler Devon Storm, and of course Daphne, who we unfortunately lost very recently, and that whole act was a lot of fun, to be honest. And so there was just that little glimmer of hope there. But in a wrestling match against someone who doesn't wrestle, probably wrestles better than he does, but doesn't wrestle strictly speaking. Yeah, it's sad.
I didn't realise that Kimberly was the heel. That bit passed me by, but
she's acted heelish throughout. On DDP, who she's seconded, was still very much a heel. The video package shows Bam Bam Bigelow getting involved. We see Chris Kanyon running out here, so we've still got the remnants of the Triad, which was a heel
Triad
group. One of the few highlights of WCW in '99, really, the Triad group. Of course they'd be split up very fast and feud with each other for about a week and a half. That's when we get Chris Champagne Canyon. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
With Clarence Mason as his manager for about 2 weeks.
Poor Canyon. He deserved better.
Yeah, I've not seen the Dark Side of the Ring that was out about him. I need to catch up on that one, but I think you have to be in the right mindset for the Dark Side of the Ring.
I do not have the heart to watch that episode. It will make me sad and very angry at the same time, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Oh man. Okay, so up next is Goldberg v Sid Vicious, God help us all. So here's a video package telling us how we arrived at this point in time. They've basically been attacking each other and making each other bleed for the past few weeks. So this is an I Quit match between Sid Vicious and Goldberg. Sid attacks Goldberg on the apron before he can even get into the ring. Must be said, though, fair play to them. The crowd are into this from the very first moment. Goldberg lands a power slam in the opening 20 seconds. Sid then takes over, hits a big choke slam. The ref reminds him there's no pinfall, so Sid goes for another choke slam. The ref doesn't have a microphone, which is the usual practice for an I Quit match. Sid is choking Goldberg, but he won't quit. Goldberg locks on a short arm scissors to regain the momentum in the match and peppers Sid with punches in the corner. The commentators speculate that Sid is hurt. He's certainly looking in trouble. Goldberg locks in a Cobra Clutch with hooks, and the referee stops the match because Sid looks to be unconscious after a mere 5 minutes 30 seconds, and the crowd respond with a chorus of boos. I think it's safe to say he's not as popular, or Goldberg is not as popular in Canada as he is in America, because I believe he'd been feuding with Bret Hart prior to this, hadn't he? Is that before this or after
do you
this?
know what? I think
with the steel plate.
I was going to ask the angle.
Yeah, I think what this was that has been documented by a few writers at the time was that Toronto is very much WWF territory. And Sid,
Uh,
while Sid had bounced back and forth, he obviously had a couple of significant runs in WWE and was well known by him. Whereas I think it was Scott Keith, another former guest of the show, who obviously lives in Canada, so he'd know a little bit more firsthand perhaps, who theorised that it was a case of WWE trying to say, they put most of their energy, the WWE, into slinging mud at competitors than they do with their own stuff, and they tried to cultivate this image for the longest of time that Goldberg was just a bad Steve Austin ripoff. And outside of the bald head and the black trunks, people who watch wrestling know they're actually not that similar at all. But WWE militants would eat that up with a spoon, and with this being a Toronto market who's very much into WWE, it appears that they did indeed buy into that. So they were pro Sid and anti Goldberg, and that was obviously second-hand accounts, but I've seen that theorised a few times.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so Benno, it's a 5.5 minute I Quit match.
Yeah, I mean, it did get the Sid, like the popular, him being popular. It gave me some flashbacks to Survivor Series '96 in New York when he was inexplicably a babyface there too, but
Yeah.
nowhere near the match. Like, did anyone ask for Sid to do a submission match? Like, he looked lost. He looked like a lost little boy in this thing, and yeah, Goldberg didn't look much better either. He looked like he was not enjoying the heat that he was getting in this. Don't think Goldberg was mature enough to work into it in any way, and it just goes 5 minutes, rubbish finish, which the crowd boo anyway as well. Like, I'm thinking of Cobra Clutch, apparently that was Goldberg's submission finish. Okay, and yeah, bad. Like, I think if you've only got 5 minutes, like, I've got a soft spot in my heart for Sid, but like, I would, if that's all the time you've got, just have Goldberg smash through him. Just go with that. That's gonna work to a point and at least be entertaining, even if the crowd still shits on Goldberg. Instead, we got these two trying to work holds, and it wasn't a pretty sight.
Yeah, I mean, play to strengths is usually how you should play these things as a booker, but
yeah, this is actually one of those old matches that would actually have benefited from the more modern situation. I mean, I hate it at the minute because it's been done to death. But imagine, of all the matches that happened a generation ago that could have had the finisher spam fest route, where they just come out and they hit spears, jackhammers, chokeslams, and power bombs until someone stays
The
down.
Heyman special.
Yeah.
yeah.
And that could have been done here, really, and it would have been a bit better. But then they still would have had the I Quit stipulation that they put on themselves, and then they chose not to honour. No wonder the fucking thing's in the toilet.
But I mean, yeah, because to me, an I Quit match is where the ref's got a microphone and the guy, is in a hold in a submission, and it's like, "Do you quit?" Ah, God, no. And
Thump.
I mean,
Microphone to the head every time.
Yeah.
Do you quit?
I mean,
No. Thump. Do you quit? No. Thump. And I love it. That's not criticism. I love that part.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at my favourite I Quit match, and I am biased, is Clash 9 Flair v Funk. I know we'll cover that one day, I'm sure, but that to me is just an absolute classic how an I Quit match should be. Cool. Okay, let's move on to oh no, of course, we've got to go backstage yet. Mean Gene is backstage with Lex Luger, who isn't happy with Elizabeth, who he still can't find. He tells her to watch his. I'll start that again. He tells her to watch her back. You stay classy, Lex. And after that, it is finally time for our main event. Two great wrestlers from Canada are fighting in Toronto for the world title. Can Vince Russo let them just wrestle, or are we going to get all of the usual, and let's face it, it's time to use a favourite expression of Bret Hart, all the usual horse shit from Russo? Well, let's find out. This is match number 12. It is the tournament final for the vacant WCW World title, Chris Benoit versus Bret Hart. This match is about a month and a half after the famous Owen Hart tribute match at the Kemper Arena in Kansas City between these two. Benoit gets a polite reaction, but it's clear that Bret is the darling of the fans here. This starts off at a slower pace than the other matches to give it that greater magnitude as the main event and the world title match on the show. It's two wrestlers exchanging wrestling holds. Bret goes for his sharpshooter after about 3 minutes. Benoit fights him off, tries to go for the crossface, but Bret grabs the ropes, and then the shenanigans begin. The fan with the Canadian flag and face paint who attacks Malenko earlier jumps the rail unchallenged, hits Benoit with his flag. He then rubs the face paint off, and it's actually Malenko himself dressed in the same clothes. I did, yeah, I kind of liked the callback in a way, but not in this match.
It's how casual the commentators are about it as well. Yeah, there's that fan again. Yeah, he's just beating up the wrestlers. Yeah, no problem. It's not like there's no panic about it.
No, it was weird. Anyway, Bret punches him. Clearly not wanting anything to tarnish this match or the outcome. Good luck with that one, Bret. Bret lands a precision pile driver, but Benoit grabs the bottom rope to break the pinfall. Benoit then gets angry and fired up, takes over on the offense against Bret. He nails a tombstone pile driver in the center of the ring, lands his diving headbutt. But in the background, we see Hall and Nash coming down the aisle. Hall pulls referee Charles Robinson out of the ring and drops him with a punch. Hall then hits Benoit with a fall-away slam as the crowd boo because this clearly is not what they wanted to see. Goldberg then runs in and spears Nash. Hall then hits Goldberg with a chair while Bret takes care of Hall, sending him to the floor and punching him around the ringside area. The Outsiders retreat while Goldberg continues to fight with them. Meanwhile, Mickey J takes over refereeing duties. Bret's leg, which had previously been injured in the TV stage of this tournament, is now being targeted by Benoit. We've got a split screen showing Goldberg and the Outsiders situation because, of course, that is of equal importance to the main event world title match. Benoit puts Bret in a figure four leg lock. Bret gets to the ropes. He lands a huge superplex, which has both men in trouble. Bret continues to work on Benoit's lower back to soften him up for the pressure point of the sharpshooter, something pointed out on commentary by Shivani. Benoit reverses a suplex attempt into a pair of German suplexes. He goes for a dragon suplex. Bret reverses it, but Benoit counters into a crossface attempt, which Bret desperately tries to fight off, back elbowing Benoit in the head, rolling forwards to get back to a vertical base. He then grabs Benoit's legs, locks in the sharpshooter. It's a fantastic sequence of moves. Benoit taps out as a fan throws in a roll of toilet paper, and Bret Hart wins the match in 17 minutes, 44 seconds to become the WCW World Heavyweight Champion for the first time as he's joined by members of his family in the ring. So that is our main event. Your thoughts on that one, Benno?
Yeah, it's like what worked in that Owen Hart TV match. Let's not do that. Let's just add a load of nonsense on top. I mean, that is a problem with the match. I will say, give Vince Russo a little bit of credit. This is WCW's first pay-per-view in Canada. It's 2 years late because, they've had Bret Hart for a while at this point. You would have thought they'd make a run at that Canadian market, but okay, they got there eventually. And even Vince Russo recognized, okay, yeah, we got to put Bret Hart in this main event. Yeah, let's put him in there against Benoit. Yes, let's put him over. So to his credit, they get those things right. Going by the Grappl as well, by a country mile. It's the highest rated match on the app for this show. A massive 3.58 stars, but that's not the fault of the two wrestlers in the ring. It's the bullshit surrounding them that I think dilutes things and pulls that down. But, there are things to love.
But I mean, it's a very valid point you make there, Benno, because you think about it. We there's no need for the Outsiders and Goldberg and anyone else to get involved in that match because it doesn't have any bearing on the finish whatsoever. It's a needless addition.
It's almost like Bret won that argument. You can imagine it backstage, Russo being like, no, bro, we've got to do this, this, and this. And Bret's like, okay, but can the finish just be a sharpshooter? Can we just at least do that? It feels like that. It was like a bargaining tactic.
No, I can easily imagine that. Yeah. Or did Bret have creative control in his contract as well? I think he might have.
I'd be shocked if he didn't.
Yeah, everyone else did, didn't they? So that would make sense. And he got his way at the end as well. It was reminiscent of those, WWF shows of the early 90s where, the whole family got in the ring and stuff. That was a Bret Hart idea as well. So, yeah, maybe you won that one.
Yeah. Liam, your thoughts on our main event?
Yeah, I'll be clear and upfront about this whole outside interference aspect. I'm actually a bit of a fan of the trope where you have two baby faces having a sportsmanlike contest and a parade of their various enemies and other bad guys who are just bitter about the situation come out and try and spoil it, but ultimately they don't spoil it. An example of that would be, I don't know if you guys remember the Royal Rumble 95, and it was Bret Hart again, and he was fighting Diesel. And they'd already had one match at King Ring 94, and I think it was Diesel's first big defense of the belt he won from Bob Backlund against a
Right.
guy
Yeah.
Backlund beat, and they're both baby
Mm.
faces, and they're doing the slow build up, and through the match you have guys like Owen Hart, Bob Backlund, bunch of other heels all get involved 'cause they don't like these guys. They're feuding with various aspects of it, and the referee says, "Nah, that's all gone. This match is going to continue." And annoyingly, it ends in a non-finish because like all of the bad guys who done like cameos on their own or in small groups all come out as a gang at the end and beat the crap out of both of them, and they fight back and clear the ring and show respect. I don't mind that to an extent, but this is not the time or the place, and we've had enough garbage on
Yeah,
this show.
that's exactly what I was going to say.
All,
We're the time and the place, definitely.
Yeah, and I'm just surprised that with all the different heels that stuck their nose in, I'm surprised we didn't get Jeff Jarrett appearance number 8. That's the one stunner about this. That is the one time Russo's tried to swerve us on this show, and it succeeded. He has really caught us off guard. He's really kept us guessing because he's finally delivered a segment that didn't feature Jeff Jarrett in it.
It's a good point. Well made.
This is Lance Storm, and if I can be serious for a minute, you're listening to Because WCW.
Your overall thoughts on this one, Benno? I mean, from top to bottom, how would you sum this one up?
The match or the show?
The whole show.
Oh, crap. But I had a good time. Like I laughed at it. I think I laughed at it, and at times maybe not with it, but I've got this 1999 like period of WCW. It's obviously not the period we all hold close to our hearts. It's coming after in between some also quite bad periods for WCW, and that we said at the top of the show, that early hope of, oh, it's the guy from WWF, maybe he'll turn things around, quite quickly being dissipated. So I've got some quite bad memories there, but I did have a laugh watching it. I can't say there was anything particularly good on the show. I think like we just said, the main event's the clear front runner as far as match of the show goes, with a nod to Jarrett and Benoit at the opener, and it was there were some interesting characters on there, some good wrestlers on this show, a fair amount of stars as well compared to some eras of WCW around this period. But it's just summed up by Vince Russo not getting out of his own way and being overly creative, and every match without fail has to have interference, or we have to play that game of a Russo bingo, and it's just despite the fact it should be a feel-good show of again Bret Hart in Canada against Chris Benoit in the main event. Instead, the whole thing just gets dragged down by the Russo-ness of the entire thing, and what could have been with a more competent man in charge.
Liam?
Yeah, this show can fuck off. The sad thing is, as we said, the reason why we went for this is just because that pure trivial note about. I'm trying to remember now if it was the number of fans in attendance or the pay-per-view buy rate. Either way, this AEW All Out, what
I think it was
2021
the
was
buy
the
rate. Yeah, I think
it was the
buy
best
rate.
non-WWE pay-per-view
Yeah.
since this one. And part of the reason why it's been so long since non-WWE pay-per-views done so well is because of shit like this. Because the company circled the drain, got bought, We had a monopoly. No one could get a foothold. TNA desperately tried to build something up, and there was a couple of periods where they looked like they had genuine momentum, both around 2005, 2006 when they were white hot and had so much good talent, and also around 2012 when they shockingly really got their stuff together and were delivering good shows. And both of those periods were ruined by, let me just check my notes. Oh, look, Vince Russo.
I've just checked back, by the way. There's only one match out of 12 that didn't have any kind of outside interference, and that was the 5.5-minute I Quit match between Goldberg and Sid. So yeah,
It's that. I mean, it's
Right.
funny, isn't it? Because like, you know, you'll say like now like AEW does have a lot of nods to like nostalgic WCW, and it'll,
Yeah.
you know, and there are it's part of the reason why I really like AEW. Like, gives me a nice warm fuzzy feeling, but it's not this period of WCW that it's giving me nods back to in any way.
And don't
Like,
get
we
me
do another one, lads. We're doing 96 or 97 or 98. That's as far as we're going.
You've
Absolutely.
earned that. If you come back on, you've absolutely earned that. But I'll say one thing about
Absolutely.
AEW is, I mean, I don't like the fact that there's Canadian destroyers in every match. There's certain other things like the little pot shots WWE I really don't like. But if anyone wants to really try and pretend that that is like the be all and end all and like that what's going to be the death of wrestling, please go back and watch this fucking show, and you'll realise that a couple of extra Canadian destroyers isn't actually the end of the world.
Agreed.
Definitely. Right. Magnificent stuff. Okay, Benno, just before you go, just remind people where they can find you and your assorted projects on the world, on the, I was going to say the World Wide Web. My God, what
You have gone back to
the
99.
90s. I have. On the social media world, where can we find you and your projects?
Cheers. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Benson Richard E, where you can see me doing pithy tweets about NXT UK and, you know, sometimes positive things as well about Brit Res and the wider world of wrestling. And yeah, my podcast, main podcast is the Grappl Spotlight podcast, which you can find. Just search Grappl in your podcast catcher, no E at the end. Also do that in your app store, and you can throw your own ratings in with the rest of us. And other than that, yeah, British Wrestling Experience over at postwrestling.com once a month, where we keep the spirit of Brit Res alive. So yeah, catch me in all those places.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and thank you out there for taking the time and trouble to download this podcast. You can find the other 102 episodes that we've recorded on becausewcw.podbean.com or wherever you get your podcasts from. In the meantime, if you don't already do it, you can follow us on Twitter at becausewcw, facebook.com/becausewcw. So on behalf of Liam, this is me, the Twisted Genius, and thank you for joining us. And we'll see you again ringside.